I'm so happy to have this chance and opportunity to meet and speak with Radhika Vekaria. Radhika, how are you feeling today? How's your day going?
I'm good. It's good to be with you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited because you're first of all, congratulations. I heard you are a nominee, Grammy nominee for an album that you have released called Warriors of Light. Congratulations. That's a big deal.
Thank you. Yes, it is. It's a bit surreal. It's still not sunk in. It's taking its time to really sink in.
When did you submit and or receive nomination?
Oh, nominations came out November 8th.
Oh, wow.
But it's been a bit of a whirlwind since then, and I think just it's a big thing, and especially for sacred music, music that is derived from sacred music and the ancient Vedic sciences. It's yeah, it's a wonderful thing, but it is a bit surreal.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
When did you first fall in love with music and or start playing music?
My goodness. I was singing pretty much coming out the womb. My mother and my mom and dad were very big fans of music, so I was very exposed to music from a very, very young age. And I used to, growing up as an Indian kid in Britain, I grew up with the Western influence and society and background, which is wonderful. But I also had the traditions and the rituals at home. So when I would hear mantras and shlokas and devotional songs, I would just naturally go to them. So as a baby, I was already, before I could speak English, I was singing mantras and devotional melodies and songs.
Nice.
It was
Nice.
very natural for me. Yeah.
And is there one that stands out in your mind that you remember?
Of a devotional song.
Yeah.
So that's a really good question. There was a devotional song called Kala Kala Bansuriwala. And it's a very traditional devotional song to Krishna, to Lord Krishna. And my father would sing that song, and I would love singing that song with him.
Nice.
Hmm.
That's cool. That's awesome. Are
Yeah.
you a Krishna devotee?
I would say I love all of them. What else?
Good
I mean,
answer.
I wouldn't say I'm particularly devoted to one. There is one that my heart is really with, but you keep that relationship very intimate and sacred.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't share that.
Yeah.
But I would say that I mean Krishna is the play of the universe, right? The play of the flute, like the stories that you hear about the flute of Krishna is that it's when something has holes in it that you can play a melody,
Hmm.
and that's the beautiful thing about Krishna's flute, saying that the whole of existence came to be through the tune of his flute, through his breath,
Nice.
play of consciousness.
What is your instrument of choice?
Well, it's voice primarily. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I came out doing, and then I trained in classical piano since I was 6 years old. But that was much more of a Western leaning. I trained in classical. It was all Western music on the piano.
Yes.
Singing was a fluid kind of flex and dance between Eastern music and Western music. I had the best of all the worlds growing up in the UK, really.
Nice.
Hmm.
Is this the first album that you've released?
No, no, I have a previous album called Sapta, The Seven Ways. And those are more kind of meditative chants like Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Guru mantras on there. Those are more kind of traditionally drawn. Whereas this album is definitely an exploration out of the box of mixing and blending, songwriting formats and a bit of English and Sanskrit and Tamil and Awadhi. There's more languages on this. There's more of a spread of instruments on here. You have hammered dulcimer, you have the flute, you have the sarod, you have brilliant forms of percussion, even African percussion I brought in because my parents were born in Africa, in East Africa. So I always like to bring in more and more of that because it's a part of my heritage and culture.
Amazing. How many people contributed to the playing and production?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. There's George Landris, Dave Donnelly, Dennis Moody, Kit Wakely, Chris Prather, Pratik Srivastava, Shashank Acharya, Alaka Varma, Isaiah Gage, Roher Montejano, MB Gordy, 11.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well done.
I do remember.
Clearly, you worked closely with everybody to be able to pull all those names out like that.
Well, they're all just such stellar people. I mean, you know, what we did on this album, because each song on the album is an entire universe of its own. Each song is really, most of the songs are an ode to a manifestation of the divine, which really is an entire portal of creation. So we wanted to, instead of having, featured instrumentalists play on all of the songs, many of the kind of main songs have one instrument that is kind of featured unique from the other tracks.
Mm, nice.
So, like, oh, and Max CT, sorry, Max, well, Max, the Hamid Dulcimer player. Um,
Yeah.
like I was thinking of, so the Aganitha Tara, the Dance of Countless Stars, features Max ZT on Hamid Dulcimer because I particularly felt that Hamid Dulcimer for the Parashakti, for this kind of power and gravitas of this divine feminine force, all the forms of the divine feminine, culminating in this one Parashakti, the sound of the Hamid Dulcimer really had that kind of piercing beauty. It's piercing beauty,
Mm,
that instrument for me. So that's the reason why I really wanted that on that particular track. So each of the songs has an instrument that really kind of is a kind of conversation between the voice and the instrument during that piece in that song to bring that story to life.
amazing. So
Mhm.
cool. Where did you record it?
So it was recorded in different scenarios because it took about 4 years to make this album. So it was, some of it was in the studio here in the co-producer that I worked with, George Landris, has his home studio here, not far from me in Los Angeles. And so the vocals and a lot of the programming and all of the kind of construct of the pieces was done there. But Max, for instance, lives in New York, and the percussionist who played lives in LA. But we went to his studio on the other side of LA to record all the percussion. The flautist Shashank is in India, so he recorded it there and sent it here. The sarod player is in India, he recorded it there and sent it here. And then one of the percussionists is in England. So it's really quite a global album in terms of the locations of the parts, but everything was put together here in LA.
Amazing. If
Mhm.
you do a live performance, I saw your website, which is beautiful, by the way, and I saw a really neat looking live performance setup where it looked really intimate and small. How do you have other musicians come in and learn all the parts and play, or how is that working in terms of your live performance currently?
So live performance right now, it's a combination of just instruments or instruments with track. So it's nice to have the fullness of the sound of the album when you're playing live. But what I like to do is I like to pull out some of the instruments from the mix. Like you can have the stems of the actual tracks, and you can kind of pull down some of the instruments that you want to play live with you, and then I have the people come and play on top. Or some of the pieces actually work really well just vocal and piano, or just vocal and another instrument. It's nice to play with how you can express these pieces. I don't do it the same each time. It depends on which instrumentalist musicians are available
Yeah.
on the day. And I just believe that, music knows how to express itself. You really don't need to do much. The more you think about it, you'll kind of just get in the way. So whatever just naturally unfolds and whoever's available, I always feel like it turns out the best.
Nice. I
Mm-hmm.
agree. Have
Mm-hmm.
you, what is your yoga, like hatha yoga practice background?
So I started practicing yoga pretty early on in my teens. And then I did just, hatha yoga, just vinyasa yoga. But I discovered Ashtanga yoga about, I would say about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I really, it changed so much for me, actually healed me in many, many ways. I had some physical ailments, and I did Ashtanga yoga, and I didn't actually realize that it was going to have that profound effect on me, and it actually did. And in many different ways, physically, emotionally, life-wise. And it actually led me to meet Manju Joyce, actually.
Yeah.
And got to do training with Manju Joyce for the first and second series with him.
Nice.
to be able to learn with his European Academy of Ashtanga Yoga. And
Very
he's just
cool.
so brilliant because he teaches in the traditional way, like his father used to teach. So very just easygoing, very natural, laughing a lot, not taking it so seriously, like I feel like, he says something really beautiful. He's like, if you're stressed while doing yoga, if you're so serious, it can't do its thing. You have to be in a naturalness of the practice. So I really like that. And Manju really emphasizes chanting. He really focuses on the chanting. He says that like his father said that, look, if it's a choice between chanting and asana, chanting it every time.
Mm,
And
nice.
I really that's why I sought Manju out, because I was practicing Ashtanga yoga before in LA, and I was asking around saying, I really want to go deeper into the study of it. And someone said to me, seek out Manju, and he's quite elusive. He's not easy to find because he's kind of a bit reclusive and kind of does his own thing. And he's not and he doesn't really want to do a lot, but he wants to work with particular people to keep the tradition alive. So um it took a while to hunt him down, and I love that he focuses on the chanting, which is really what I gravitated to as a child. So
Amazing.
it was a happy place for me.
Oh, that's cool. Do you still maintain an Ashtanga yoga practice?
Yes, somewhat. It's kind of a bit of a flex and a flow, especially since the pandemic happened. It's been difficult to be physically with your teachers and have be like my sole practice kind of fell away, and I have to admit it was very, very hard. But Ashtanga always calls me back. Or if I do like a vinyasa practice, or I'm even teaching, I'll bring in some of the Ashtangi style into it, and kind of incorporate it in. I never forget my Ashtanga. It always makes its way back into the back into the practice.
I hear you.
Once you're doing those, jump throughs and jump backs, you kind of always want to maintain that in some way. So.
I hear you, right? Like once you have that feeling of like, okay, I have this ability to work my body in this way, when you start sliding a little, you think, oh my gosh, I probably should get back to it here. Try to
Yeah,
maintain my edge a little bit.
yeah. And the Ashtanga practice, I think one of the things that we don't often talk about in this day with Ashtanga is that it's meant to give you lightness in life, so in that seriousness, it's like even in that we have to remind ourselves not to be so serious, and that the jump throughs and the jump back, the playfulness of Ashtanga is really what made me go to it. I had a great initial first teacher here in LA, and I remember her saying it's playful, when you're on the ground and you're doing all of that in Ashtanga, you're kind of like a child. You're rolling about and you're going forward and back, and you're moving your body in a way that's almost like, baby, you remember what it's like to be a child. And I think that that's what keeps you youthful. I think that's what is the kind of key to life, is to be childlike. And Ashtanga has a lot of that.
I agree, Radhika. Ashtanga is challenging, and often when students will come in, I teach my source style Ashtanga every day here at our studio, and sometimes people will say, "Well, don't you get bored doing the same thing over and over again?" And I'll often liken it to the fact that like if I want to learn music, I would need to learn scales and learn chords and actually study notes and how to read. And then once I do the classical learning, then I could potentially compose and create something. And I feel like Ashtanga has this very kind of fundamental aspect to it that then, like when we go down the vinyasa flow track, potentially we could then draw from our classical training and move forward. Do you think that's a reasonable analogy as a musician?
I do, because Ashtanga, when you're doing the same sequence over and over again, you're kind of deepening the groove, right? You're kind of carving that, and you're going deeper and deeper and deeper. You can't dig in different, you'll have heard this so many times. You can't dig in different spots and hope to find gold. You have to keep going down the same spot, right? In order
Yeah.
to really discover something. And it's the same with music. I mean, growing up, when I played classical music, I remember the scales. You just have to do the scales over and over and over and over and over again. And that's where it becomes like second nature. And when the structure of something becomes second nature, then the flow can feel safe to do what it wants. But the structure has to be solid,
Hmm.
right? So it's the same thing with Indian classical practices. I was very lucky to connect with the Ali Akbar Khan College of Music, and through my friend Ranjana Ghatak, who has learned from the Khayal tradition of Indian singing from Pandit Ajoy Chakrabarti. That's him. He's amazing. And it's that it's the constant going over it. If you can find the joy doing the same thing, if you can go beyond, like at first when we're learning something, and you'll find this with Ashtanga yoga, your students, they'll come in, they'll learn the primary series, or they'll be learning it, and it feels really good for a while, and then you inevitably hit that plateau where people feel, oh, this is like the same thing, and you have to go past that
Yeah.
plateau of that kind of perceived boredom, and I would say it's perceived boredom
Yeah.
because
Good point.
it's a kind of this idea of, as you're discovering something, it's exciting. Anything is exciting as you're discovering something, and then it's this kind of this almost this you're not able to be present with it any we're not able to be present with it because there's nothing new.
Mm.
And that's a real shame because you go, oh, am I only present with something because it's new? Or can I be present with something that I've done over and over and over again and find the elixir in the sameness,
Great point.
right? And
Great
if you
point.
can find elixir in the sameness, I feel like you're impenetrable. You are like nothing will shake you. And that's the thing about Ashtanga. That's the thing about musical practice. It's one thing to perform. If you meet musicians who are successful, they will say that they often don't even sing their songs that much, but they practice scales a lot.
Mm.
In Indian classical singing, especially, you don't sit there and perform a rag. You don't sit there and do that as a practice really that much. You do the scalic practices. And it's the same with yoga. It's the same with asana. It's the same with pranayama. It's the same with all of these pillars of the yoga practice, really, is you do them over and over and over again. So you have that foundation. So when you go in life is an improvisation based on patterns. The whole of life has patterns. That's what it is.
Well
And so
said,
life is
Radhika.
an improvisation upon patterns.
Yeah, that's a great point. I love that viewpoint.
And that's music and that's yoga. So I love that you brought that up. I
Are
love that.
are you practicing scales every day still? Like, what does your music practice look and feel like currently are you doing a daily thing? Do you have any sort of like just free flow, or is it like regimented, like a schedule? Like at Monday at 9 o'clock, I wake up and I do.
No, I'm not that person. I am not a yogi that way. I'm just well because my schedule is so because I work with people overseas and as well as here, so the time zones it makes it a little difficult. But I'm kind of forgiving of myself where I say, look, I want to find that moment of that space with myself. And I want to experience that space of devotion in a clarified and anchor way. So I do find some time every day to sit, even if it's for a few minutes, I will sit and just connect with the voice. I'm also, I'd say spiritual practice. It kind of feels like everybody. It feels like I think life is a spiritual practice. To be honest,
Yes. Yes.
the older I get, I realize that there's no such thing as a spiritual practice. It is just life, and we're all just stumbling upon that way. But part of my devotional expression and my prayer is singing. So I get to exercise that. And, even with something like Nadi Shodhana, like that's the preparation for meditation, or, that is part of what prepares the voice. It's amazing how much of an effect even alternate nostril breathing can have on your vocal,
Mm.
on your breath. If I do that, with regularity, the voice is entirely different. Pranayam changes your voice. It changes your ability to articulate. It really does. It frees you.
Mm.
It's quite profound. So all of the spiritual practices also are part of my sadhana for voice, but the sadhana for voice is my spiritual practice. So it's kind of lucky that they just feed into each other.
I get it. Do you ever try to engage public groups to do a call and response singing with you? Do you engage with yoga students on that level of chanting mantra together? And what sort of tips and tricks do you have for getting people to move out of their fear and embarrassment to be vocally, to vocalize to, and do you have any tricks that you could share with us?
Well, I tell them a story of when they were born. Like
They
basically,
scream when they come out. Yeah.
yes, exactly. You
Yeah.
get, you come out, you're in the mother's cocoon and you're nice and safe for 9 months, and then you struggle through this little canal and you're thinking, what is going on? What's happening here? I was safe. Why didn't you leave me in there? And then you come out into the world, and what's the first thing that happens to you? You get hit and you make a sound. And it's funny. I've often thought about this, Todd, and everybody says it begins with breath, but I don't think so. I think it begins with sound.
Mm,
I mean, they say in our Vedic scripture, that the beginning came from Om, right?
yeah.
You
I,
say, even in other faiths, they talk about, and then in the beginning there was a word, and the word was God, right? So,
yes.
and you make that sound in order to breathe. So it begins with the sound. So I always tell people that is that you began your life making a sound. Who made you think you shouldn't?
Well, that's a great question.
Huh? So
Yes.
it is your natural place to declare yourself here. Why not do it with melody? Life is melody. Life is
Mm,
just a series of notes, and the events and the memory is melody. Really, the memory in between those things happening is melody. So, and it's amazing the transformation that happens with people, even if you're just getting them to do sargam, which is the sargama padanisa. You just get people. It's amazing how naturally and easily they pick it up. Because the way that the notes are positioned in how you move through the sequence is a natural way for the mouth to actually move. We're not used to even moving our mouths much when we speak. We talk like this because we're so stressed. We hold everything so tightly because we think we're in control. When you're helping people make sound, I say, people, when you make the sound ah, open your mouth. Open your mouth like when you were a child and you used to scream, ah, it's just a cute. Let it out. You have such a universe of sound within you, and you don't know anybody anything by being quiet. So and it moves so much energy. When I have students, and they come for different reasons to do, sound coaching, or I'll work with them on energetic things, and I always use sound. And they something, sometimes they cry, or they just from the beginning of the hour to the end of the hour, the difference, the stress that goes, the joy in their face. It's just you move, life moves with sound.
mm, well said. I hear ya. Do you do you do a lot of call and response, or are you more performing, just like having people listen and you sing?
Well, when I sing my songs from my album, they are actual songs, performed pieces. But what I do sometimes live is I always love, well, not sometimes, I always engage the audience. So I always, because some of the parts of the songs I've created are chants and they're
Mm,
mantras. So
mm,
I'll tell people beforehand, okay, do you want to sing it with me? Let's learn it. And they always feel good learning something. Everybody feels good learning something.
yeah.
And so I always involve them in the pieces. Even Raghupati Raghava Rajaram, it's a very, very well renowned song for peace and unity in India. And I have a bit that says Bolo Ram, and I explain to people what that means in the beginning. So then in the song I'll be saying Bolo Ram, and then I'll point to the audience, and they'll just naturally do it. These
Nice.
are not specifically kirtan audiences. My audiences tend to be a mix of people, most of who don't even practice yoga, don't even know what Sanskrit is, but they've come because they feel like there's something accessible for them. And that's really what I want. I want to make chanting and mantra and these philosophies accessible to anybody,
Mm. That's so
because
cool.
because there's something resonant in there. We can all resonate with something profound that's lying, that's dormant, waiting to be accessed there. So,
Great.
however, it's my duty to make it easy. It's my duty to just, there's a chance that a seed can get planted, then that's my job, you
Great
know?
point, Radhika. When you asked the question earlier, like what is holding us back from using our vocal cords if we came in. And right when you said that, my own personal answer is I remember one time I was sitting in the car with my friend who was like 10 years older than me, and I was just like singing along, and he kind of got really stern with me and was like, "Why do you keep singing? You don't sound good. Why do you keep just listen to the song and stop singing it?" And I just had that feeling of like shut down, like the first time someone really kind of scolded me for just thinking free and just like going for it. Have you ever had anything hold you back in your life
No,
from
I had, well, in terms of singing, no. My parents were, loved music. I would belt at the top of my lungs all day, every day. I do not remember a time where they told me to be quiet.
Yeah,
I do not.
amazing.
But first of all, I mean, it starts in the home, really, right? If your parents cultivate that and they see you having joy from expressing something, even playing piano, like if the television was on and my father was watching TV, he would plug headphones into the TV, but never tell me to stop playing piano. It was really interesting. Like he just didn't want to get in the way of that,
Mm,
which was very kind. But I have had so many people, Todd, say what you have just said to me, and oftentimes it's come from family members.
yeah,
It's
isn't that
come from
interesting?
people
Yeah.
that they, when you're young, you trust your elders and you trust the people around you, and then when somebody says to you, you shouldn't do that, you don't sound good, you know, that stays with you well into adulthood. And not everyone is meant to be a professional singer. I understand that. That. And if someone says to you, I just really want to listen to the song, there's a way of doing it if that's what they want.
Yep.
But we must be mindful of squashing people's enthusiasm.
Yeah, good point.
Father said that to me once. He said, the worst thing, the way you can most hurt another human being is to squash their enthusiasm.
Great
Worst thing you
point.
can do to somebody because you're actually hurting their heart. Because the enthusiasm and joy comes from the heart, doesn't come from the mind. So you're hurting their heart, you
Yeah,
know,
good
which is
point,
the source
Radhika.
of everything. So you're kind of going to the well of that person and kind of trying to shut that down. And that has a profound effect on so many different aspects of their life. You have no idea what consequences they'll suffer for you doing that in the split moment,
Mm.
you know?
Did your mom and dad move to Africa when they were children?
No, they were actually born there. My mom and dad were actually born there. So my grandparents came from India, like a lot of Indians did, because it was British colonies. So they came there, and then my parents were born in Kenya, both of them. And then my dad moved to Uganda with his family when he was 4. So my dad was Ugandan. And then they moved to England and they met in England and they fell in love. Actually,
Amazing.
through music. And my dad was singing and my mom was dancing. They met in a show, a little show.
How cool.
Yeah, they
And
fell in
so
love.
I'm so curious, how many languages do you speak?
Okay, so I speak Gujarati, which is my grandparents' tongue. I understand a bit of Hindi. I would love to speak Hindi more. I just think it's a confidence thing. I'm not around it as much, but I can understand a bit of Hindi. Obviously English, I try very well. And I speak a little bit of French, a bit of Spanish. I sing in Sanskrit. I would say I'm still a student of Sanskrit. And I'm learning very mildly a bit of Swahili because my parents would speak Swahili in the home. And I love Swahili. I love languages. I love picking up languages, singing in languages. I've sung a bit in Hebrew before, because I've been exposed to that. I love different languages.
That's so cool. That's amazing. I'm always in
Oh,
awe of
and Tamil. I had to learn phonetically Tamil for this album because there was a song composed that was 3,500 years old in Tamil by Sage Sage Agastya. Wrote it 3,500 years ago, so I had to learn at least phonetically how to say that composition in Tamil.
How many different languages are you using on the album?
There's Avadi, Sanskrit,
Is that
Tamil.
is the
and-
Avadi because you do some like Hanuman Chalisa?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. I didn't actually know for a long time that the Hanuman Chalisa was in Avadi. I thought it was in Sanskrit because it's so close. But actually, I found out. So then I went and I actually learned. There's a beautiful, there's also a beautiful course by Shama Sangeeta. I can actually give you the link. It's by a
Let's,
beautiful singer called Naren K. Shriner, who's an incredible, incredible, beautiful Bhakta singer. His voice is it's one of my favorite voices. Him and his friend Lopa do this beautiful course on the Hanuman Chalisa, and it's just donation based. And they teach that, and then I got some extra, I got some pointers from them, and I actually did some research as to how to actually pronounce it because it makes a profound difference. It's slight, the difference, but it makes a huge difference in how you feel and in the Hanuman Chalisa.
oh, that's amazing. I would love to get that link and try the course. I love chanting the Hanuman Chalisa. Could you do like just the first two opening parts? You have it memorized?
Yes.
Would you be willing, whether chanting, singing, or just saying, just so I can hear your pronunciation?
Yeah. Shri Guru Charana Saroj Raj Nij Manu Mukuru Sudhari Bharano Raghubar Bimal Jasu Jodayako Phal Chari Buddhihin Tanu Jaan ke Sumirom Pavan Kumar Bal Buddhi Vidya Dehu Mohi हरहु कलेस विकार.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank
Amazing.
Tulsidas, right? Goswami Tulsidas. How lucky we are. It feels so good just to sing the Doha, right? It's so
Yeah.
nice. Just
I was like, I should have to do that right away just to get my eyes watery. And then
oh, okay. I get to even now every time I do the it's just so
I had it's amazing. My teacher, Tim Miller, he was a big time Hanuman devotee, so he got me inspired to learn the Hanuman Chalisa. And the last time we went to India, I was able to go to Hanuman temples and chant Hanuman Chalisa with the locals, and I had the best experience ever because I feel like they were just first of all shocked that I was there, and then I knew the words, and it really was the most culturally for me, like my experience in India. I feel like that was a real highlight to get some pujas, go to the temple, and then and have the locals in there. It was so amazing. I really, but your voice is absolutely incredible. That was so good. Oh my gosh, thank you for that.
I think, one of the things about going to India and being around it so profound because you're really in the cocoon of devotion, and especially with Hanumanji, it's all about devotion, and for me, it's just the love. It's just pure love. So when I sing, it's just like I go somewhere else. It's just I'm here but not here. Like it's so we're so lucky, Todd. We're so fortunate to have had these things passed down by the sages and the seers and the saints, and we have this because of them and their love and devotion. It's carried on through the ages.
I like the way that you paused right before you started. It looked to me as if you were like getting this feeling of like I'm about to chant something that's really important. So let me just like center myself here first before I just like go for it. And
Yeah.
that's really amazing element. Do you is that something that you feel you cultivate? Every time you start to sing, you take a moment and like get centered and focused.
Because it's not about me. Like even if I'm chanting or singing, it's not about me. It's about it's about just being humble and giving yourself over, and before you can do that, you have to, it's one of the kind of central tenets of like Vedic teachings is humility, and you're not going to receive that which you are meant to receive if you don't bow your head. Like even in the posture of bowing your head, like in an Indian culture, you touch the feet, right, of your elders, your teachers, right? The reason you do that is because you're prostrating, you're bringing your head lower than your heart. It's in that position where you can really truly receive. If your ego and if your mind is higher than your heart, you're gonna think you know everything. So taking that pause and that moment to just lower yourself, just lower yourself. It's not about being submissive, but it's about being reverent, having that reverence to something and allowing it to pour. You can't pour into something if you're higher than that which you want to receive from. You have to be lower, right?
Yes.
You pour
Yeah.
in. So you
Well,
want to kind of put your hands up like this when you're singing, you know, really,
understood. Well said.
yeah.
And I kind of interrupted you there. You started going on about you first brought up the language of Avadi for the Hanuman Chalisa. Did I pronounce that properly? How do I say the name of the language?
It's Avadi,
Avadi.
Avadi, yeah.
And I'll let you finish explaining some of the other languages that you invoke for your
Yeah.
album.
So some of it is Sanskrit, which you're familiar with. So, you have the Jaya Jaya Durga Ma, you have the Mahamrityunjaya mantra in the song Liberate. You have purification prayer at the beginning, Asatoma Sadgamaya. So those are all in Sanskrit. There's a few peppered in. Then the Tamil language, like in Aganita Tara, the dance of countless stars, that's in Tamil. When I came across that composition, it was a beautiful composition introduced to me by my friend Vinitha Menon, who learnt it from her guru, who's learnt it from their gurus and passed down. Um, I I heard that composition, Aganita Tara, and something just I couldn't let it go. Like I'm not it's never happened to me this way before. And the Tamil language is I feel an incredible connection to South India. My family's from Gujarat, but there is some phenomenal connection to the South Indian culture, the kind of the purity of how they've held on to the Vedic teachings. It's so profound and so deep. And for me, that particular language, when I heard it, I said, I declared even before I wasn't even clear on the pronunciation, and something just came out of me and said, I need to record that song. Imagine a song in a different language, and you just say, I'm going to record this. I'm going to record a version of this
I love
because
it.
I just felt that I needed to express that it needed to be in the world today. And so I learned through my friend, I learned through my other friend's mother, who is a teacher, a Sanskrit scholar, and I trained, I mean, a Tamil and Sanskrit scholar, and I learned the Tamil, the pronunciation of this particular song because you have to. If you say it incorrectly, it's not like in English where you pronounce a word slightly differently and it still has the same meaning within the context of the song. In Sanskrit and Tamil, if you even accent something differently or your tongue placement is slightly different, it changes not only the word, but it changes the entire context of the sentence and the meaning of the passage. So I tried my best to get as close to the original as possible before recording it.
How long did that take you to practice that?
That particular song I spent, I think it was between the time that I heard it and recorded it was a year, or it was about
Wow.
12, about 11, 12 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And the Hanuman Chalisa, I thought I had that locked down. And I thought I
Until
could,
I thought I had that locked
because
down.
because you hear other people doing it, you'll listen to different versions, you'll emulate it, and you'll sing it since you were a kid, and even your family. My parents came from, my family's come from India to Africa to London to, so the pronunciations may move and they may morph, and then I realized, oh, hold on a minute, there's something that needs to be particular about this. So I had to unwind how I had known it to be And I went and I studied. Again, it's that, going back to that conversation about music and practice. You must practice something before you come out and want to share it. It's very excitable to come out and want to share stuff, but you should understand it, at
Yeah.
least have some humility. I remember when someone said to me, "Oh, I got asked to teach yoga for many years." And I said no because I heard a great teacher. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Tim Miller. I can't remember. But there's a famous yoga teacher that said, if you feel the urge to teach yoga within the first 10 years of practicing, ignore it. It's an impulse. You haven't lived with it enough
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do that. And I mean that's why the great gurus would say, you want to learn this? Okay, come sit with me every day for 10 years, for 8 to 10 hours a day. And then at the end of that, maybe we'll talk.
Hmm.
Because when you teach, you're a steward. I don't think people realize that. When you begin to teach, you take on your shoulders the responsibility of bringing forward thousands of years of knowledge, thousands of years of knowledge, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm honest, I resisted doing this for a very, very long time. I got asked to record mantra devotional music for a long, long time, a very long time. And I kept saying no. I would sing it live, but I didn't want to record it because I didn't feel I was ready, you know? And it's only when I started to get the blessings of certain teachers and the encouragement of certain people who had dedicated their entire lives to it that I knew that I was getting a blessing from something that was from something very, very time old, you know? And I thought, okay, maybe, but still, I honestly, I feel like I know nothing, you know?
I hear you.
Yeah.
And you feel the same. And just as like a musician,
Mm.
is it similar like how I personally feel like about like yoga practice? Like I feel like, oh, I don't think I'm ever going to be a yoga master. I'm never going to master this. I'm just practicing every day. Do you feel music is the same way that you still feel like I could learn so much more? I could be potentially so much better.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, even just the whole way that a musician has to move through the world now, we can't just focus on our craft. We have to do all of the social media and the this and the that and the, I mean, this conversation is great because we're talking about it, but all of the extra stuff that we have to do, it is a struggle. It's very hard. I wish I could just be in a little mud hut with my teacher and learning for 10 hours a day and not having anything else to worry about. But it is the way, it is the incarnation that we've been dropped into at this particular time in this realm, and we have to do our best. But there's a lot to contend with for sure in terms of staying close to practice. But there's something about the idea of mastering. I think when you watch the great Indian musicians, like every time you see Pandit Ajayji Chakrabarti come on stage, they touch the stage. You see all of the Indian musicians, and they always open their concerts saying, you know, uh, you know, you know, asking for blessings from the audience and saying, I am still a student of this. And they are masters, but they call themselves students, and they say, I hope I can do this service, and I hope I can, you know, give you the best as where I am right now. That's an incredible amount of humility. And they have the voices of the gods. They
Mm.
have the ability of the gods in their hands. And that's just the most beautiful, beautiful aspect of practice and aspect of having teachers. And I'm so lucky to have touched the feet of great masters. I feel so fortunate that I've had these people come into my life and care, and to be able to just observe them. You don't even have to take a lesson from a true master. You don't even have to speak with them. Just observe them. Watch them move through the world, and
Mm.
then you'll understand why they carry that, you know?
Yes. Well
Yeah.
said.
Hmm.
Radhika, how have you been processing? If you're in Los Angeles, can you tell me a little bit about what sort of emotion and feeling you've had with the fires?
Yes, well, thank you for asking. It's been very, very tough to see what's happened to this city and have many, many friends who have been not only displaced but lost everything that they had. Musicians in our community who had instruments that were nearly 100 years old, who've, got, we've not only lost, um, people have not only lost their homes, but they've lost eras and capsules of time, and now it only stays within the memory and the stories that they can pass on to the next generations. It's been difficult. The air it's actually been hard for some people to be outside. For me as a singer, I've had to have like extra care here. I am, not as affected as other people, but you really do feel it's going to take a long time. But on the flip side, when something like this happens, it is a chance to see the best of ourselves. This is really where the best of ourselves comes through. And Los Angeles really has come through. The music community has really come through. Music Cares has just, it's an incredible organization, is supporting a lot of artists, musicians, because this is their livelihoods that have gone. It's not like many of us go to a workplace every day. A lot of us create our our love and our expression in our homes. But yeah, it's going to take a long time, and we can just take it one day at a time. But my heart really goes out to everyone affected. You can feel it. You can feel the heaviness in the air.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Did you have a speech impediment when you grew up? I read somewhere that you overcame the challenge of having a speech challenge. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yes, I did. I developed a speech impediment around I think it was about 6 years old, which is when it typically emerges for people. And it's actually very common, actually, having a speech impediment, a stammer, affects many of us, actually. And for some people, if they don't get help, then it actually can lock in to our adulthood. And for me, it was very difficult. Like music and singing was always very easy. You must have seen the movie A King's Speech. That's a very real thing that a lot of singers actually may have had some form of a speech impediment growing up. It's where we found solace and freedom. But when I would try and speak, it would always there were obstacles and blockages in my voice, and it was hard because that has repercussions as a kid. Can you imagine having a really bad speech impediment, being in school, having to battle the human tendencies that may be around you? It has a psychological impact, not just a physical impact, but a psychological impact, an emotional impact, mental, and even physical at times. And so it's something that can be embedded. And if you don't have, I was very lucky. I had a very loving family who cultivated and encouraged so many other things in my life, like music and sport and art and all these different expressions. And music is really what saved me and got me through, at least in terms of the mental and emotional impact of what that could have been. And as I had mantra and or music practices when I was very, very little, but as you're growing up in England, you go to more to Western things. You don't really anchor into your Eastern stuff as much. Um, but there was something always missing. And, the stammer and speech impediment still followed me well into my adulthood. And when I, started coming back to mantra and, devotional music, through my sadhana, through meditation, I started to realize the profound effect in my ability to articulate myself. I
Hmm.
I see
Interesting.
it as a gift in a way because I couldn't express myself freely when I spoke a lot. So I had time in a way, it was a gift for me. It almost became like this. I was imprisoned by the obstacle, but in a way, it gave me time to think about, well, when I do have a chance to speak and I do have a chance to share what's inside of me, what will that be? Because I have to make it matter. Being forced to be in silence makes you think about that, you know? And what I realized is that the mantra and coming back to Vedic sciences and philosophies and my spiritual, all of these spiritual teachings, practicing devotional songs and mantra, especially Vedic recitation, it's like training. As you know, we talked about practice and training. It's creating a groove within you, and even chanting. Like, well, the difference between okay, so one thing I want to actually clarify, probably many people are, the kinds of people that listen in your audience. The word chanting has been used by the West to describe kirtan or mantra. Mantra is a little different to chanting. So chanting, when we think of chanting, we think of, say Gregorian chanting and singing like that, right? There's a difference between recitation of mantra and kirtan. There's a difference. Like the way we sing Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya in song form is devotional. But if you're doing that as a mantra sadhana practice, the recitation is very different. There's a different approach, even in the way you sit, where you generate the sound of your voice from, the throatiness of it, the intent and the focus of it. So it's a different practice. So the bhakti practice is different from the recitation practice. So
Makes sense.
I'm sure you know that, but maybe for people that might want to understand the
Thank
difference.
you. Yeah, thank you for fleshing that out and giving the
Yeah.
details. I hear you.
Yeah.
Are you sitting down and chanting? I'm sorry. Let me use proper terminology. Are you
Exciting.
doing a mantra practice and able to differentiate in between those two? Clearly, you are. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Because like Vedic chanting and that really has like very few notes that you're moving between, right? It's like three notes really, and that's all you're doing, and you stay within that cocoon. It's kind of like an Ashtanga practice. You stay within a structure, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it, and you feel the vibration. You really are really in union with that vibration. You're allowing every single sound and syllable. Every sound and syllable is an entire realm. It's an entire realm. So you really don't want to be moving around too much and rocking those realms, those worlds, right? You want to keep it contained and precise and concise. It's very scientific. They're Vedic science, they're called Vedic sciences for a reason. It's very particular. It's like Arjun's arrow, right? The Bhagavad in the Mahabharata, Arjun was the greatest archer. It's precise. So there's a precision that makes you be able to stand up and have courage. And this is what these mantras are doing. They're really cultivating that resilience and that strength from inside your soul. That's what it's doing. So the precision is really important with the recitation, with the mantra. With devotional singing and bhakti, bhakti is hot. Bhakti is like, you're just like letting it unleash, and you can take liberties and play. But bhakti came later. It came later than
Yeah.
the metered recitation. And there's a different purpose for them. They're both valid and they're both needed, but there's a time and a place and a particular application for the different the different usages of them.
Thank you for explaining all that. You gave us an example of the Bhakti devotional side from the Hanuman Chalisa. Do you feel comfortable doing a mantra so we can hear the difference? I completely understand if you decide not to. No problem.
No, I would say so. Just to clarify with the Hanuman Chalisa, I actually found out recently that that was a bit of a rebellion. The Awadhi language was like a folk language. And apparently that was a bit of a kind of rebellion against the strict kind of metered stuff that wasn't being shared with everybody.
Mm,
So
fascinating.
that's why the Hanuman Chalisa can have that melody. You don't really say it as a strict meter, you sing it, right? And there's
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
rags that you do it
yeah,
in that
yeah.
kind of create a sense or an emotion or a certain kind of strength. The way I did it on my album was more like a lullaby, and it was more kind of sweet because that's what I feel with Hanuman. I feel like this incredible sweetness. I just want to kind of curl up and that's
Keep it.
my relationship with it, right? So, but with the recitation, you have like, for instance, the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, right? So you have like different ways of even pronouncing that because Sanskrit itself has evolved. There's classical Sanskrit, there's Vedic Sanskrit. India's a very old place. These languages have gone through many different iterations. So sometimes you will hear Om Trambakaya Jamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat. Right? But some places you will hear Om Trayambakam Yajat Trayam, right? So the pronunciation can be a little bit different depending on what your teacher and their lineages kind of come from. But they should tell you that, look, this is more classical or this is more Vedic, just so you have that knowledge that it's not the be all, like it's not the one strict way. I think a lot of people get into this almost this kind of fight about, no, this is the way, no, that is the way, no, and it really does depend on the school and it depends on the lineage of the teachings and really what is it that you're applying it for? What are you using the mantra for? For instance, I will say that the Mahamrityunjaya mantra should not just be picked up and done by anyone all the time. It's a very powerful mantra. And if you're going to sit and recite that mantra, it's going to have an effect that you may not desire in your life. This is why picking up mantras off the internet is not a very smart idea because they hold such incredible power to change things in a very drastic way in your life. They're very powerful, you know.
Yes.
So be prepared that, I remember during the pandemic, there was an app called Clubhouse. And there was a room on there, an audio room on there where they were doing the Mahamrityunjaya mantra every day. And it's a lovely idea to do that. But for some people, and I did say to some people, I say, look, just be mindful that if you do this, things could change in a very dramatic way in your life, maybe not in a way that you wanted them to. And it did happen to a few people that they said, oh my God, and it's fine, it's moving things, but you may not have desired things to you may not be ready for it, is what I'm saying. Like you really want, if you're doing mantra sadhana, if you're singing bhakti, that's fine. That's fine. But if you're doing mantra sadhana, make sure you're getting that guidance from somebody who really is a master or that knows you and says, look, this would be good for you to do for this period of time. Just like with Vedic astrology, when you used to go to a Vedic astrologer, they may have said to you, maybe do this particular mantra with this ritual for 40 days or for 6 months.
Yes.
They were often prescribed to you, just like yoga was in the past. Yoga was prescribed to you. It wasn't often this 90-minute, 2-hour practice. It was when a doctor didn't know what else to try. You would go to a yoga master and they say, sit and do Shirshasana. Do Shirshasana for 6 months, then tell me how your
Mhm.
hearing is. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
like that, right? Or like,
And it would maybe shift and change according to how you've changed. And so there'd be this like back forth.
exactly. They talk about like mantras being medicine or these things being medicine. But the thing is if you take medicine that is not meant for you, it actually becomes poison.
Great
It's not
point.
good for you, right? Actually,
Yep.
it actually causes health problems. In that way, if you pick up, and I'm not talking about the general mantras, but if you pick up something, especially bij mantras, do not touch them without the initiation of a master. Do not touch them.
Good
It's
advice. Good
really,
advice.
really important. Please,
Yeah. Yeah.
please don't. Um, because they are really powerful and you have to be guided, not just whether they are for you, how to say them, when to say them, how to prepare and sit down to say them, things that you do to you never just sit down and just do a mantra. It's not like that because there's a preparation in how you approach it as well. You want you if you're going to use these things, you want to prepare in the best way, right?
I'm so glad you're bringing that up because it's interesting. Because in our culture, it's like if we were to talk about, say, a weapon, someone could probably understand that. Like, hey, before you pick up this weapon and
Yeah,
use it around somebody, this could be really dangerous. And
exactly.
so there's training that's involved. And I guess I don't know that in the West culture, there's a lot of appreciation for the power of sound. I
Mm.
think maybe we know it inherently. Like if we go to a concert, we hear sound, we have emotion, we can feel that the music has some sort of power. But I feel like the level of care that you're instructing us with now is more of this like reverence for sound, power for the sound, the power of sound, that we have to treat it with deep respect and appreciation for what it can do. And I think that's something that's very unique about that teaching.
Yeah, I mean, a sword can protect, but it can also kill. And I see sound as the same way. Sound is piercing.
Yeah.
Sound can heal you, it can also pierce you. If you think about our universe, our world, all of it is sound. If somebody says something cruel to you in a moment, that quite literally can harm your mind.
It's true.
It hurts you. It's like someone's taken a sword and they've cut you, right? We don't realize the power that we have when we utter and we speak. We don't realize what we're saying to each other. It's not just in music or concerts. How are we even speaking to each other? What are the words that we're using? What is the approach that we have to people? I often say to, students and say, it's not just generating the sound, it's how you approach a person. So even when we're doing like sargam practice, how you approach a human being before you even make a sound. Say you see someone in the street. Before you even make a sound, they're going to see the way you're approaching them, and they're going to now respond. They're going to perceive you a certain way without even knowing who you are, but they're going to see the way you're approaching them, and they're going to form an impression. And that relationship, that dialogue that occurs, is somewhat based on that first springboard impression before you've even said anything. It has a very, very big impact in how we use the sound, why we're using it, what is the intention, what is the utility, what is the power, what is the outcome, and where is the love in that. And this is why mantra sadhana, this is why these Sanskrit and these sounds that are really, they were experientially derived. They are actually the vibrations of creation. When you say akash, 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 you're vibrationally beginning to resonate with the qualities of akash. That's what's happening. And it just makes you realize that all of the noises and the sounds that we make, we can either create sounds that hurt or we can create sounds that nurture. And I do see sound as a sword. And maybe it's the fact that I wanted to be a surgeon. I see sound as a scalpel. And like some people say what I do is sound surgery. I wanted I wanted to be a surgeon and remove
I love
cancer
it.
for people. That's
Yeah.
what I wanted to do as a child. And I want to just share with people in my humble way, well, what if you could wield that scalpel for yourself? What if you could remove your own blockages? What if you could generate the sounds and recite or sing, use your voice and use your own tool that can cut away at the things that don't serve you anymore? You know, that's the point.
Wow, Radhika. I am so grateful to have this chance to meet you. I'm so thankful. This has been such a treat. I, based off of the level of precision that I can feel that you're putting into your craft and your art and your what you're releasing with this album, regardless of whether or not you walk away with like an award on stage, Do you have, based on everything you've said to me thus far, do you have a dream for what you have produced and created, what kind of hope or dream do you have that this music will create or produce in the world?
I simply want people to remember who they are because that's the place of victory. Where we're in a time where a lot of us are battling something externally or internally. And I simply want this album, which is really a journey from purification to peace. It basically from the beginning, it embarks bravely and courageously into that space of transformation and then finding your sovereignty. That is the journey of the album. It starts by going in the fire. Asatoma sadgamaya, tamasama jyotirgamaya, mrityomar amritam gamaya. It's literally saying, lead me from death to immortality. It's like, I am ready. Come on, let's go. You know, I want for this album to help people feel courageous, resilient, and know that they have everything inside of them. And ultimately, to be seated in their own sovereignty. That is the point, because we cannot have peace if everyone is not sovereign, if they have that self authority. It's so important to have the self's authority. There, I never said that before. Not self authority, the self's authority,
Understood.
And when you remember who you are, that's when that can happen. And that's when we can really take care of each other.
Well, I don't know what more I could say after that. I mean,
That's the mark of a warrior, right? Is to protect and
yes.
serve, right? So unless you know who you are, you can't do that, right? So I want people to understand they have that warrior inside of themselves. It's time to be strong. So to get your mind. I'll tell you just something quickly. There's something that was at
Yeah.
the beginning of Warriors of Light. It was at the beginning of me making this album. I turned up at Manju's place for an Ashtanga training, and I'd gone through something really tough, really hard personally. And I went to him and I said, I don't know if I can do this training. It was really hard. Even after years of meditation and sadhana, you're still gonna get knocked. You're still things are gonna happen. And he said, tell me what's going on. And I told him what was going on. And he just turned to me and he said, very simply, he said, you've got to get your mind strong. Let's go. And we did. And
Yes.
that's it. And it was the greatest gift.
Oh, wow.
And that's when the album started. When someone said to me, you've got to get your mind strong. And how you get your mind strong? Well, this moves, this doesn't. So you draw from here. And that's why Hanuman's in there. And that's why Ram is in there, right? Because that's where you end up here in Ram. It's the heart.
Uh, Thank you, Radhika. Thank you so much. I feel really I'm so appreciative that you took time for us today and to share your story. I'm really excited for you, and I think your message is really powerful and really amazing. And
Thank
yeah,
you. Oh, this was really lovely to speak to you. Really.
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh man, well, I can't wait to release this, and I can't wait to hear the results. You said Feb second or third?
Second, yeah, second.
And do you go to the a ceremony and sit there and wait and have your palms sweat until and they start calling people up? How many people were nominated for this award?
5.
And I read that you would be the first uh the distinction, I believe, if you do win, would be the first person of Indian descent to win. Am I right here?
First woman, yeah.
First woman.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. All right. Well, I'll be rooting for you. I'll be
Thank
rooting. I'm rooting
you.
for you. We're rooting for you. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be so amazing. I can't wait. All right.
Thank you so much.
Well, what a treat. I'm in awe. So thank you so much, Radhika. And I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person or coming to one of your performances and or just enjoying your album. I know I can find it on all the listening platforms. I followed you on YouTube. You have a great YouTube following. Congratulations. Great job. I see you're on Instagram, your website. All the links are in the notes below so everybody can find everything that you have available very easily. And just thank you so much. And I can't wait to continue following your journey and see what progresses.
Thank you. And thank you for doing such an amazing podcast. Your work is beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Todd.